It's the state of the dungeon. It's a video that Rob does about his games. Yeah! Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I am Rob, and this is my State of the Dungeon address. This is for the game that took place on October 27th in the year 2022. The game was Gooey Cube's Red Star Rising campaign, Part 3, The Coldest of Blood. The party was already in motion as they had been given the charter of what the Hanatas are all about from Mother Sylvenza, and told that their function right now is to be treasure hunters for the mysterious patrons that have backed the Blue Veil troop. And their combat skills are impressive enough. They're being trusted to go off with Vestia, one of the Bondurinn, a powerful mage in her own right, to go and acquire an amulet that their patron requires. And no idea what it is, no idea exactly what the challenges are, except that the place they're going to is very cursed. So they're going to have to use all their skills to survive and acquire the item that they seek. So the party basically at this point were ready to break off. They had been given a variety of magical items to help them on the journey. These items were loaned to them, except for the potions. They're expected to be used, but the items were given to them, knowing they're powerful, to help them through this mission. They'll have to be given back to the troop. So, this includes such fun items as a Sword of Speed and a lucky bow for their use. So, moving forth with Vestia, they go into the trees. Now, this group has had previous experience with haunted forests before, and this wasn't going to be a lot different. Basically getting bombarded by proof after proof that the forest did not want them. The party met up with a few challenges. First of all, a primer for the night. They heard a loud buzzing off the track and discovered that the source was a spawning pool for hog skeeters, including several adult members that attacked them. Now again, why they're finding these in winter, the bog's magics are truly wondrous for these horrible creatures. The party fought them off, taking only slight injury, and this was one of those circumstances where we have a breakthrough. Vanessa uses her wild shape ability to become a giant frog, who slurps up one hog skeeter, and then goes into their spawning pool and makes sure there's not going to be any when they come back. She's not hungry anymore. But she did find a gold ring worth a fair chunk of money, even if it is supposedly fake due to the botched analysis of both Glyn and Crendon. So after that fight, the group continued along the trail. This trail was a road. It was a road proper to the castle they're going to, Castle Estragon, but it has been abandoned for a long time, so it's very overgrown. The bog is trying to consume it quite quickly, but it's still good enough that they can follow, and there's still evidence that it was a road. There's some paving areas and stuff like that. Well, as they're going along, they searching about, being prudent, when a large creature dropped, well, not a large creature, it's a smallish creature, dropped on top of Brandel. The wizard now had a bramble creeper on her that was slashing at her relentlessly. Bramble creepers are something that they had faced in their first Forest Fun journey, and this was a group of 5 of them that attacked. Now this time they have Vestia on their side, and no Ventov, unfortunately, but you know, Vestia can throw a mean firebolt. The group took some pretty vicious damage. These things do a fair amount of damage for their size. They punch way over their weight class, but they can't take a great deal of punishment. So the group worked together to eliminate them one at a time, and eventually they just, you know, They did some damage, but they fell to the combined efforts of the party. And at this point, too, Vanessa found out the tough thing about being a frog is that they're relatively easy to hit. and their stats are not as good as what Vanessa's stats are. So she realized that it's not an optimal combat situation for a lot of circumstances and went back to her normal form. So, it's about timing with Wild Shape, really. So they fought the Bramble Creepers off, and they were present to go forward again, until eventually they got to a standing stone in the middle of the track. This particular standing stone had runes on the side, which they found out was actually writing of the Fey variety. Yeah. Also, they had found this magnificent white horse that was just walking through the bog. Walking through, nothing wrong with that, right? Yeah. Glyn bonded with the creature, and, looked very smart on his nice white mare. Until they got to the standing stone, there's a large pile of manure some sort of predator had left behind, this ordure. And the horse suddenly bucked and chucked him into the manure pile. That did not make Glyn very happy. Also, this horse proved to have a mischievous streak. At one point, dragging Crendon's pants down around his ankles, and relieving Haranen of his Sarek Iron sword, just pulling it out of its scabbard as he was prepared to go off to battle. He had the sword of speed, though. He was all right. So, while this was happening, they were looking at, around the standing stone, there was a body of a dead dwarf. And as Glyn was searching around the area, he searched by flying into a pile of poop. This huge hound, about the size of a cow, with a single red eye, just suddenly lunged out of the forest as if just suddenly appearing and attacked him, missing. Unfortunately, that's how it goes sometimes. Missed him. The party turned and leveled fire at the hound, and the hound vanished without any further assault. The group was confused, but when they went around and investigated the dwarf is unfortunately dead. He had been battered and sliced by blades, and his blood was used to fill in some of the runes that were on the standing stone in some sort of a bizarre and bloody ritual. So, looking together, they have people who are well skilled in arcane lore and also the tricks of the Fae. So, by looking at it, they realized that the ritual, if it was completed, would summon the hound to take one who had recently died, probably off to the Shadow Fae court. They rationalized, they could scrub the ritual, which might earn the enmity of the Dark Fae in the area. Clearly there were some. They could just go on, let things take their course. The Dark Fae will probably not blame them for that. Or they could finish the ritual and summon the hound, who would probably take the soul of the dwarf. But, by pact of the ritual, would reward them for doing that. Well, the party is generally made up of pretty decent folk, so they looked really askance at that option, and chose instead to cleanse the platform and bury the dwarf, taking a short rest to replenish their stores, to heal up, mend, and of course take advantage of Crendon's ability to do the Song of Rest and give everybody some hit points back for this, which topped off pretty much everybody, and they had used very few resources. Vestia, for instance, has used nothing but firebolts at this point, so she's still fully loaded for bear, which could be very, very useful in the near future. So, the group finished with that, and the hound never came back. They had the feeling that the hound was not going to come back with the ritual undone. So they continued on the way to the castle. And as they were going along, they were ambushed. These horrible little humanoids, they're called vials. and they are akin to vermin, rats, but a human, yeah, kind of like debased were-rats almost, without the ability to change form. But these things are rough. They are immune to pain, so blows that they take don't do as much damage no matter the source. They are amphibious. They can go into water as long as they want. They are a lot of problems. The good news is they're not very civilized. They're attracted to places of curses, haunted moors, places where great violence has been done. They kind of feed off the vibe. They are truly vile. Well, they attacked the party with an ambush. This ambush didn't go very well for them. Although they scored a couple of stinging blows to Crendon, I think Glyn took an arrow. All in all, their offensive firepower was not anywhere near what they needed to take on the party. And in the end, one ran away. The rest of them all died. So Glyn decided he was going to chase after and finish that one off. His vengeful streak apparently was stoked. So he ran off while everyone else is like, okay, Glyn's got this. He's a ranger in the woods. He's fine. He was ambushed by the leader of this little hunting party, who emerged out of a pool with a spear ready to try to ambush Glyn, but Glyn saw it. He's in the forest, he's in his element. And he turned around and fought with this thing for a little bit. The thing had him outmatched as far as number of attacks. It could bite at him and try to spear him. But then Glyn just critical through the eye and killed it. So that was a quick fight. Very quick fight. The one that was remaining did try to ambush when he thought that his boss was going to tie up Glyn. He moved off to a vantage point and was preparing to shoot arrows into him. He got one arrow off. Glyn turns. He tries running away. Glyn shoots him down. So they come back with the bodies. They search. They find some stuff, of moderate interest, but it's clear that these things are debased creatures. And by now the group is really kind of tired of this. They've gone through several fights over this stretch, and they're starting to lose resources. They're starting to look at their healing potions and look askance at that weird healing rod they found earlier. Things like that. They haven't been tested like this all that long. Even the butcher's farm at its climax started to wear them down, and now they're finding that these fights could really start sapping their strength. They haven't even gotten to the castle yet. So, however, that was the last encounter. They next got a view of the castle. And remember, they're in the stinking Blackrot Bog. The smell of death and decay is terrible around them. There's been a mist that's made them miserable all throughout. Well, now the mist has left, and they get a vantage point. They can see the castle. It's ahead on some high ground. The walls have mostly fallen down. It's in a sad state of repairs, and there is a chilling presence to it. All of them feel something foreboding. For one, it's seeing an apparition rise out of the keep and beckon them to come. For another, for Glyn, it's seeing undead watchmen, ghostly images around the castle and the keep. For the other, it's just a bad feeling. Except Crendon, he's just happy to be there. Well, the party approaches the keep. Nothing on the perimeter that they really have to worry about, and they get to the walls of the keep itself. And they start making plans on how to get in. They see plenty of tracks of these vials, so they know these things are infesting these ruins, most likely. So, Crendon does as Crendon will do. Crendon used his black mask to assume the form of a vial, which he can do. He's studied them enough that he can make a pretty good impression. And he creeps off into the structure of the castle itself, creeping past several of the smashed walls to look into a promising looking staircase going down. That is, before the castle itself. And the rest of the party decides they're not going to let him go in purely by himself, so they follow at about 50 feet off. Kind of makes the point of having a scout redundant if they're that close. Especially since he, as a scout, isn't paying them any mind. It makes sense that he's one of them. So the skullduggery isn't really rewarded as a couple of vile archers up on the keep walls start opening fire on the party. They don't go after Crendon in his disguise. They are shooting at Haranen, who is large, wearing armor, a little more obvious than the rest of them. He also didn't roll brilliantly for a stealth check, so he was the natural target. Two of these vials then start getting fire returned back upon them, as everybody just looks to unload. Certainly helped by Vestia with her firebolts, still very deadly, but also Vanessa looked to move forward to try to throw daggers and add her firepower to theirs. Glyn, of course, firing his bow and dealing devastating damage. You also saw Brandel with her firebolts seemingly a little bit more accurate than Vestia, because again, the DM's dice weren't all that great. And Haranen flanked off and decided to start going through the ruins off to one side. To what end? Only he can know. Maybe to investigate more, maybe to try to catch somebody by surprise, what have you. Crendon saw from his vantage point that the keep itself had more occupants within it, and that there were some who were kind of held in reserve. So when the archers went down, he knew this fight wasn't over. And in truth, while Vanessa moved up behind cover of the staircase leading up to the keep, one of them jumped and pounced upon her and attacked her viciously. Another one bolted out and went off in the direction of Haranen until they ambushed him. It was... I'm not going to pump it up and say this was dicey, but this was another fight where, again, their resources were really split. Haranen got really seriously injured over the fights between arrow strikes and this vile assault. So he really, kind of got chewed up for being off by himself a little more without any cover. Whereas Glyn, I believe, was relatively uninjured throughout the whole thing. Because his ranged assaults, they didn't really reply in kind nearly as much damage as he was dishing out to them. Likewise, Vestia's magical protections and natural dexterity make her a pretty hard target too. Actually one of the better armored people in the group. So, all in all, the fight was really relatively one-sided, despite the fact the Vials attacked with superior position. They're just not strong enough to challenge the party directly. And Haranen was saved eventually by Vestia coming around and taking on his foe from behind, while he was in a kind of dire straits. The rest of the group moving up, and when they all eventually got together, when Crendon realized that his ruse wasn't working, when the leader of the things popped up next to him and said, "We are under attack," and he just, did not go with that as he has done in the past, and instead used a magical spell, Dissonant Whispers, to attack this creature. Well, and then, which he made a saving throw, which looked dangerous. Then Brandel fired off a string of magic missiles at the creature, which again, it weathered pretty well. It pounced on Crendon, pinning him down into the stairs, and looked like it was going to try to kill him. But Crendon, of course, has access to some magic, and his Dissonant Whispers drove the creature away. So it ran down the stairs to get away from Crendon. And didn't come back. So it got away. Technically, it's in the under part of the castle. The group got together. Good berries were had. There was some healing that was divvied out, enough so that Haranen is not falling over anymore. But now here's the thing. One got away and went underground. If there are more of them, they don't dare just sit around because they are almost certain to be attacked. These things have been punched in the nose. How will they react? Well, we'll have to find out with the next session. But it's very much a fluid situation, and they're very much still in a great deal of danger. So until next time, my friends, we'll see what the party does after the next session. Until then, thank you, and farewell.